typical power banks. They come in all shapes and sizes, from little small ones to medium ones to big honking ones, and some are wider and flatter and whatever. So they're handy to have in case you need some mobile charging and you're not near your car or near an outlet or whatever, and you need power, and they're handy to have. So for me, uh, I use them from time to time to, if you're out in the yard or need something to be charged, you can carry them around. But for the bigger ones, I have a specific need for them because I have several of these heated vests or heated jackets that run off your 5 volts of a power bank. So, like this particular vest, heated vest, is a 9 zone. So you get 2 in the pockets, 2, and then a couple going up your back, and then 1 in the collar. And you need a pretty hefty power bank to get any kind of hours out of them, even because most of them have several temperatures, high, medium, low. And like this particular one that I just put away, it has 3 heat zones. So when you first power it up, it's on high, and then after 10 minutes it defaults to medium, and it stays there unless you physically smash the button for either low, off, or high. So and usually the medium setting gives you ample amount of heat, but you need a decent power bank if you're going to be like out for what I do out in the field, and from late late winter through good part of spring, and then from late fall into winter when temperatures are cold and you're outside, you need want a little extra heat because you want it to stay warm. So you need a hefty power bank that can at least provide you at least 8 hours of heat, without having to worry about swapping power banks or carrying extra ones in your pockets. So they come in all shapes, sizes, and forms, and they tell you that each power bank is rated for so many milliamp hours. So, like on a heated vest, they suggest a minimum of 20,000 milliamp hours to get whatever amount of time. Like on that one, the minimum time for is 20,000 for 8 hours. And some of them that have more zones, I have one that's 11 zone, and they claim 6 hours or something like that on medium. So when you go shopping for one, because you're going to need a couple of them, in case you have a long duration. So they come in all shapes and sizes and milliamp hours. And the biggest problem is a lot of them are falsely spec'd out, and they claim 30,000 milliamp hours, and yet they're only maybe 18,000 milliamp hours. So you don't always get what you're paying for. And the biggest problem is, and along with a lot of consumers and a lot of people, they're not going to take the time to test it. And because how are you going to know? You're Joe Blow from wherever, you're going to want a power bank, so you're going to say, well, I'm in the market for a 20,000 milliamp hour, and you go on Amazon or eBay, or you go to your local hardware store where they're sold, and you get a nice big shiny package that says 30,000 milliamp hours, and you're like, all right, that's what I need. Plus, it'll be more than what I already need, and that's fine and dandy. I'll go ahead and buy it, and it's only $30. Okay. So you go home, you charge it up, and you put it in your, whatever, and you use it, and you don't get the time that you thought you were paying for, and it's because you got screwed. And so, I just happened to stumble on some good power banks and some bad ones. And these Duracell ones, these are good power banks. I know because I've tested it. And this one is, I think the biggest one that they sell is 20,100 milliamp hours. And I've tested this, and it's within the specs. And the specs is 20,100 milliamp hours. You do have to take in consideration that there is some losses because you're taking 4.2 or 3.7 volts out of the pack, and you're increasing the voltage. So there's a boost converter in there, and there is some losses when you're taking one voltage and boosting it to another one. The biggest problem is that you don't know how efficient these power banks are, and typically, they're about anywhere from 80% to pretty much in the high 90s. Problem is, nobody, and it don't matter where you buy them from or what brand you get, they do not offer the specs on the boost efficiency. So you don't know, and nobody will ever know unless you're the manufacturer that bought the parts to build the power bank booster. So it is a large unknown. And then the other factor is what kind of batteries are in them. So like these power banks, these Duracells, they're the classic 18650 type battery. And with the 18650s, the biggest milliamp hour battery you could get is, I believe, 3600 milliamp hours. What commonly they're about anywhere from 2,000 milliamp hours to about 3,400 milliamp hours. That's the common ones. So they take that, and they, of course, when you parallel them up, you add up the milliamp hours. So if these are 3 amp hour or 3,000 milliamp batteries, blah, 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 and that's your milliamp hours. Then you get into these packs. These are so-called the flat packs. So they're to keep them thin and flat, and they're a flat type battery, and and they're lithium polymer, and they come in different sizes too and shapes and stuff like that. So you can get them custom built, and they're the typical flat packs. Just like a LiPo battery. It's a battery in a bag. That's what it is. So they claim that this one, I believe it was 28,400 milliamp hours. So I says, hey, that's the perfect rating, and it's a nice size because it's a little shorter than the Duracell. And of course it's a little wider, but that's not a problem going into a pocket. So I bought this, and I plugged it in, and 4 hours later I noticed it was off, and the display said 0. I'm like, what? That can't be. It's a 28,000 milliamp hour battery. Turns out it's not a 28,400 milliamp battery. It's a lot less, and it's pathetic. So what do you do? There's not really much you can do about it, other than you can return it, but it's like whatever. So the best thing to do is, and unfortunately there's not a lot of people who do it other than wackos like me. I would actually now I physically test everything, because there's a lot of bullshit out there saying that, oh, well, this power bank is 28,000 milliamp hours, and it's really an 18 amp hour battery. So, same thing with the 18650s. You'll see them bright yellow or bright red, uh, ultra fire or ultra power 18650s, and they say 9,900 milliamp hours, and they're really 500 milliamp hours. So that tells you, there's a lot of shady sales going out there, And I've gotten to, actually bought some of them just to see how much capacity is really in them, and they're pathetic for, but at least you're not spending a huge chunk amount of money, for a cheap battery. So you would be saying, well, how the hell do you test them? Well, you got to get a little creative and get some stuff. So first thing you need is some kind of electronic load, and electronic loads come in all shapes and sizes. It's depending on how much you want to spend, and if you're into that thing. I am, so I like doing stuff like that. So you can get these electronic loads, these USB powered ones, and they come in different shapes and sizes. And some of them have a little meter on them, and some of them, have a meter on them, but they don't tell you the capacity. And then you get some other load testers that they look a little bit more, like you're in a laboratory. And being that this is a laboratory of wackiness, and just being generally insane in general, I get these stuff because you can pick this crap up on eBay and not spend a lot of money and yet get the results that you're looking for. So to test a power bank or one of them cigarette lighter USB charge adapters and stuff like that, and that's another thing that a lot of them give you false claims saying that the thing is rated at 2.1 amps and it barely puts out 800 milliamps before it's overheating and shuts down. I've run into that and tested stuff like that. I'm like, this is pathetic. You want to get a charger because, very rarely that, your phone, some phones will charge at, whatever amps for, whatever length of time until the internal charge circuitry says, yeah, we're going to start backing off because the battery's coming up to charge and stuff like that. And it's not the charger itself determining what the phone needs. It's the phone that says, hey, I'm depleted. I need, I want a certain amount of amperage to charge the battery up. And since it's linear, as it starts coming up to charge, it starts backing off on the charge rate, and that's just a communication of the phone charging circuitry inside, or anything that has a rechargeable battery in it. There's a lot of false claims and people that are religious saying that, oh, I like charging things very slowly. Yeah, that works, but with today's technology and charge circuitry, you're not going to hurt a battery, charging something that's, 1,800 milliamp hours at 1.8 amps. Yeah, you can charge it at an amp and wait an extended period of time for it to come to charge. Is it good for the battery? Yeah, probably. But, does it really matter? No, not really. Because, first of all, any kind of lithium battery, as soon as it comes out of the factory assembly line, it's already got one foot in the grave. It's just a matter of time before it does eventually die. So going back into testing phase, to test something like this, and I'm going to test this one in a future video just to see what it really is, because I haven't really tested this one yet. I've tested this one, and this one, all from Duracell power bank type batteries. So they're a little hard to find now because they're getting scarce to find, because I don't know if they're still being made anymore. Probably not. So whatever you see is probably new old stock and stuff like that. So I want to test this one to see if it's I already know it's not anywhere close to 28,400 milliamp hours, and this is one of them Amazon deals. And when I make a video of testing this, I'll put up a link where I got this from. So you need a couple of things to test something like this out. First of all, you need some kind of electronic load, and they're all over the place. They come in all shapes and sizes, and some of them have a built-in meter and stuff like that. The problem with that is that the meter is not always accurate, and it's drawing power, so it's kind of like robbing power away from the battery and testing results like that. Like this one has a meter on it, but this one's a dumb one. There's no meters on it. It's just your load adjustments and stuff like that. This one has a meter, but it just shows you the voltage and the amperage that you're taking out. So in case you have a dummy load, you need some kind of meter to tell you your capacity that you took out of the battery and or charging. So these things usually you plug them in and they light up, and they tell you they give you the basic information of your voltage and your amperage and how many milliamp hours you're using. So you need a meter and a dummy load, and that's all you need to do is just plug them in and reset the little counter, because most of them have a little counter to tell you how many milliamp hours that you're using. And then you can see how close it is to the rated capacity of so-called claimed power bank. If it's a 30,000 milliamp hour and you're only getting 15 milliamp hours out, or 15,000 milliamp hours, or 15 amp hours, whether you got a good one or a bad one. So earlier, a long time ago, I tested these, and these are within the percentage of the efficiency of the boost converter. So I know that these are good, and this one is not so good, because this power bank in my vest on medium lasts about 9 hours, and when I used this one, it only lasted maybe 4 hours. So I know that it's a dud. It's not a dud, but it's just not. You didn't get what you paid for or what you wanted. So I have another one of these. I have another power bank on order through Amazon, saying that it's 30,000, and it's from a reputable company, Basis, the same ones that sell these awesome Basis micro USB charge cables, because that's another thing that you can test with a dummy load and a power source to see if your charge cords are any good. Because your cheap dollar store ones, typically they're junk and garbage, and they say they're good for 2 amps, and really they're only good for half an amp. They're pathetic. And of course you get what you pay for. You buy cheap, you get cheap. So you buy a decent cord, you'll get decent voltage and amperage. And typically with USB, a voltage of anywhere from, I think it's 5.2 volts down to almost 4 volts is considered within that range. But in my own personal feelings, that if the voltage drops below 4.7, it's junk. It's not capable of carrying the voltage and or current. So, but a lot of people have their own beliefs, saying, well, it'll still charge my super phone at 4 volts, so you're full of crap. That's fine. Whatever you want to believe in, and some people have that mentality of because they're molded into a certain way of life, and you can't break that mold. So everybody has their own opinion, and my opinion is a USB charge voltage is the minimum of 4.7 volts, and that's the way it is. And being that electronic loads come in different shapes and sizes, and some have their own purposes, and some are cooler than others. Like all these little jobbers. When I bought them, they work. They're fine. They work for what they're intended to do. Some of them are multitasking. Some of them they can test your mini USB, USB-C, USB micro, Lightning, so that's your Apple cord, and then sometimes you'll get a real oddball connector that you can test, and they work good. So in the future, I'll be testing this pack and a brand new pack, and sometime maybe I'll even make a video of testing these cool little USB chargers that are cigarette lighter chargers. That if you have like a new install, that you can have multiple chargers. Like this one. This is a QC 3.0, so a quick charge 3, and it gives you USB-A, two USB-A ports, and a USB-C with power delivery. So that's pretty cool to have these new ones with power delivery. But is it rated for its amperage? We'll find out someday. Maybe someday I'll test them. So I got two different types here because I do use them. They are fairly decent for what they are, and they do come close to their so-called amperage rating. I did do a quick little test, but nothing significant. And like this one, this is the top port is quick charge 3, and the other two ones are your regular standard USB charging, so 2.1. Can it really support I think it's 4.2 amps? And most of these chargers, they're wired in parallel, so you don't need to charge unless it specifically tells you that each port is capable of 4.2 amps or whatever amperage. So generally, same thing with the power banks. The outlets are in parallel, so if you can get whatever voltage or amperage out of one port, it goes for the other port. And then, like I said, you can test your charge cords to see if they're any good or stuff like that. Then you get into the real fancy and a little bit more accurate of testing equipment. See, the problem is with these things, and before I show this thing, each time you plug something in, you'll get voltage loss. So if you plug this in, and let's say you want to do your PD power, and you need to trigger it, because sometimes with these power banks, these testers, you need to trigger them. So you need a trigger. So in case you need to trigger it, so if you want to test your 12 volt segment of your quick charge power bank, you need to trigger and tell the power bank to push out 12 volts, and then you need your dummy load, your electronic load. I say dummy load because since I'm an amateur radio operator, I actually have a dummy load. It's a tin can. It looks like a paint can. It's full of mineral oil, and it has an element in there where you can zap it with radio frequency electricity power and not have to worry about polluting the neighboring airwaves with your key ups and stuff like that. So I use dummy load and electronic load hand in hand. So, but anyway, the more stuff you plug in, the more voltage loss. So if you got 12 volts here, and by the time you get to Your dummy load, you're only reading maybe 11.7, so you got voltage loss, and voltage loss is wasted energy being wasted as heat usually. So then you get into the more fancier electronic loads, and they come in all shapes and sizes. Some of them are huge, massive, just like this one. This one's, to me, is huge, but there's bigger ones. And you got this sucker right here. Yeah, this is no nonsense equipment. What this thing can handle. And then it comes with its own power, 12-volt power adapter and stuff like that. Because usually when you're testing, you want to have the tester have its own power, so it's not feeding power in from what you're testing, because you're robbing electricity. So this thing is pretty cool. I don't remember. This is the DL24P electronic load, and I don't remember what the rating is for, how many amps this thing can pull, but it's good to a little bit greater than 36 volts, in which, unless you're testing huge power bank, like electronic, like lead acid batteries in series, 36 volts. So your common household, at most you might test up to 24 volts, so your 24 volt power supply. And then you can, but the biggest benefit with this is that you can test the capacity at a certain amperage. And usually, if you want to wait decades to test something, usually the minimum amperage is sometimes a quarter of an amp. But a quarter of an amp, on a 20,000 milliamp battery will take a long, long time. And it's going to probably take a couple of days to do that. But usually, generally, testing amperage is about an amp, because that's usually kind of like if you were to take the average of your latest smartphone, charging at whatever amperage, and then by the time it trickles off and other parameters and stuff like that, usually it's going to come out to be about an amp. So then you get your amp hours. So let's just say this was 28,000 milliamp hours, so it's going to it should test out, if it was in a perfect world, at 28 amp hours. And of course, you got to factor in some losses. So within, I would say 20%. If you're within 20% of the rating, you got a good bank. But if you want, to pay for a better one, a better power bank, it should be like these. They rate them at 20,400 or 28,100. They came in like 19, so excellent. So I rattle on enough with this silly, useless video for another half hour of absolute bullshit. So if you stood and watched this long on me rambling on and on and on about absolutely nothing, thanks for watching. If you thought it was useful, make sure you click the subscribe button. It sucks to have to remind people to subscribe. That's why I throw up the animations, because it's a lot easier, and I don't have to remember on saying subscribe. So we'll see you on the next video. Bye.